just a quick video going over managing large data sets in Excel. So this is a data file that I downloaded from the UN data site, data.un.org. As you can see, you can look up data sets for different countries, and they have a nice collection of data sets for their member states. And so I found this one that I thought was interesting. It's crime, international homicides and other crimes. I downloaded it as a CSV, which plays very nicely with Excel. So here's that file. And if you look at this file, okay, it's kind of big. It starts out, we have the region or country or area. So they start with the total, and then they go with the different regions, and then they finally go down to the country level. The year that the data was taken, the series, I'm not we'll kind of see what those mean in a minute, and the value for those. And then we've got some footnotes and some sources. So first of all, I am going to go ahead and get rid of these two columns, footnotes and sources. They are important, but for just looking at the raw data, I don't need them, and they are taking up some real estate on my screen here. So I am going to highlight the F and the G here and right click and delete, and that will delete those two columns. So I no longer see those columns. Now if I go in here, let's see how many data points we have. If I do Control Shift down arrow, I will go all the way down to the bottom. There's 3,774 data points in here. That's really more than I'm prepared to work with right now. So let's see what kind of things we have here. Now I see that there's something going on here in this column. I'm going to go back to the top here. This thing called series. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but if I look at them, actually, you know what? They're kind of hard to look at because they're cut off by the width of this column. So in order to be able to see all of the data that I'm working with here, I'm going to highlight this column, and then I'm going to go to between the D and E columns. You can see my cursor changes from a down arrow to this kind of side-to-side thing. If I double click here, it will go ahead and make this column wide enough to fit all of the data that's in the column. So that's very nice. So looking at this, international homicide rates, that's one kind of data that we have in this data set. We also have percentage of male and female international homicide victims. These are the males, and then here are the females. So there's a lot of different categories for this data. Let's say that I am interested in homicide rates per 100,000, right? That seems interesting because if you're doing it per 100,000, then you can kind of compare countries that are small with countries that are large without having that impact the numbers. So if I only want these and I'm not interested in any of these other categories, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to right click anywhere in this column, and I am going to sort from A to Z. Now that's going to sort all of my rows. So as you can see, it starts out with the assault rate per 100,000. That's also very interesting. I'm interested in the homicide rate. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to click here on this one to highlight this row, and I'm going to scroll down, and I might have quite a ways to go. In fact, I can see this is going to take forever. So instead of continue, there, it didn't take as long as I thought. All right, so I don't want the assault rate, so I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I click on this 441. So I'm not interested in the assault rate. I'm going to right click on these things that I have highlighted and delete them. Okay, now I have the data that I'm interested in, international homicide rates. Okay, so I want to keep all of this data. This is the data that I want to use. Scrolling. Now if I got tired of scrolling, you can always come over here to this bar over here and click, and it will jump down by page. So if I click through here, okay, now we get to kidnapping at the national level. Well, this is a depressing data set. All right, I'm going to click on the first one that I don't want, and then I am going to go down to the bottom. Okay, again, I can click over here, just clicking until I go through all of them. In fact, I can click and hold it, and it'll go through quicker. Okay. Oop, went too far. Go back up. Okay. So here's the bottom of my data set. In fact, there are my headers. That's okay. I don't need that either. I'm going to hold down Shift and click this, right click, delete. Okay, so it looks like we've got 769 data points here. Some of them are from different countries. Some of them are from the same country in different years. That's okay. I'm trying to get a general feel for this data, so I'm not going to worry about what year the data was the data point was recorded in. Now this column is too big, so I'm going to do this business again, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so let's go all the way back up to the top. Here are the kinds of things you might want to do with a large data set like that. Okay, so first of all, we said we wanted to get rid of we're interested just at a country level. So these that are the total and for the different regions, I am going to delete those as well. These are records I'm not interested in. Right click and delete. All right, so now I have my data set. I might be interested in the average for all of these nations, or the mean, right? Or maybe the median is a better indicator of the center of the data set. Or I might be interested in the standard deviation, which will tell me how spread out they are. Okay, again, I'm going to adjust the width of that column. All right, so how do we calculate an average in Excel? Well, equals average. Okay, I started typing it. I see that it's highlighted the response that I want here, so I'm going to click the tab button. Now if I go and click in the very first cell in my data set, I'm going to now hold down Control and Shift and the down arrow, and it will go ahead and highlight everything in that column down to my last data point. Okay, so notice we have 763 records here. We don't want to have to scroll through all of those, and that can be really tricky. So remember, Control, Shift, down arrow will highlight everything in the column. Okay, I can now either type in that end parenthesis or not. Either way, if you just hit enter, it will calculate your average for you. The average international homicide rate for these nations is 8. Okay, let's see what the median says. So equals median. Okay, again, I'm going to hit tab to select median. Go to the top one, Control, Shift, down arrow, and return. And it turns out that the median is 3.5, which is much less than the average, which means we have a right skewed data set here. And for our standard deviation equals standard deviation. I'm going to take this as a sample, right? We don't have every nation, we don't have every time period, so this is just a sample. This is sample data. So I'm going to choose that, standard deviation.s, Control, Shift, down, and enter. So now I have calculated an average, a median, and a standard deviation for this data set that we found online. Okay, hopefully this has been interesting to you.